Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Vrindayaya Tulsi Devyaya Priyaya Kesara Sacha Vishnu Bhakti Pade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha.
You can just let Rudrani keep it. It's okay, dear. Okay, dear. Thank you. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasoda Nandana Bhaja Jana Ranjana 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 Yamuna Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjali Hori Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopi Jana Vallava Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallava Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallava Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallava Girivardhari Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Ya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pavrikacharya Satya Sadashi Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai Jai Radha Krishna Kupa Kupanashai Makunda Radha Kunda Kiri Gaurana Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Navadip Dham Ki Jai Jagat Puri Dham Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we're on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10. 10, chapter 64, and this is verse 10. And here King Nirga is speaking with Krishna. Nirga uvacha Nirgo nama narendroham Ishvaku tanaya prabho Danishvakya yamaneshu Yadite karnam asprisham Nirgo nama narendroham Ishvaku tanaya prabho Danishvakya yamaneshu Yadite karnam asprisham Nirgo nama narendroham Ishvaku tanayo prabhu Danishvakya yamaneshu Yadite karnam asprisham Nirga uvacha Nirgo nama narendroham Ishvaku tanaya prabho Danishvakya mahaneshu Yadikaram narapsaram Nirgo nama narendroham Ishvaku tanaya prabho Danishvakya yamaneshu Yadite karnamasprisham Nirgavaja Nirgo nama narendroham Ishvaku tanayo prabho Danishvakya mananeshu Yadite karnamasprisham Nirgavacha Nirgo nama narendroham Ishvaku tanayo prabho Danishvakya yamaneshu Yadite karnamasprisham Nirga uvacha King Nirga said Nirga nama Name Nirga Nara Indra a ruler of men Aham I Ishvaku tanaya a son of Ishvaku Prabho O Lord Daneshu among men of charity Akyamaneshu when being enumerated Yadi perhaps Te your Karnam ear Asprisham I have touched. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada's disciples. King Nirga said, I am a king known as Nirga, the son of Ishvaku. Perhaps, Lord, you have heard of me when lists of charitable men were recited. King Nirga said, I am a king known as Nirga, the son of Ishvaku. Perhaps, Lord, You have heard of me when lists of charitable men were recited. Purport. The Acharyas point out here that although a tentative expression is used, perhaps you have heard of me, the implication is that there is no doubt. So we'll read the tikas of the Acharyas too. They're rather short. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, you must have heard about me when the charitable persons are listed. Yadi, in this case, indicates no doubt, as in the usage, if the Vedas are evidence, which means since the Vedas are evidence. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur definitely is saying that this is a sneaky way of saying, yes, you've probably heard of me. Jiva Goswami goes a little deeper into the subject matter. Nirga is described as the brother of Ishvaku and the son of Shraddhadev, Vaivashvatamanu, in the 9th canto. Nirga mentioned here was a different person, the son of Ishvaku. By saying he was a king, he denies that he was the best of the Devatas. A couple verses back, Krishna says, oh, best of Devata, he addresses him as a demigod. By saying his name, he answers the question, who are you? O Lord of all kings, Prabhu, you may have heard my name when groups of bards sing ancient histories. The word yadi expresses some doubt, or the doubt is a manifestation of his politeness arising from his inner humility. Because he did not consider himself worthy of being heard of, he said, perhaps it has touched your ears. This means, perhaps you have slightly heard of me. Since you are the Lord of all lords, it is impossible that you would have heard about insignificant persons. It's interesting because he's assuming here that Krishna is like everybody else and doesn't have omniscience. And for the purposes of pastimes, Krishna oftentimes doesn't have omniscience. But he's saying, oh, you're so important. It's like, the king doesn't know what every carpenter in his kingdom is doing. It's like, I'm not that important, so you wouldn't even know. But of course, Krishna knows. In mentioning charitable persons, he hints at his giving of charity, which caused him his problem. And this is what the purpose of this chapter is, to teach about the inherent problems of trying to follow in what's called karma kanda, or trying to get ahead in the material world through sacrifices. That such a small fault would cause such a serious reaction was for informing the general public. This intention of the Lord will be explained later. And Sanatana Goswami writes, similar to what Jiva Goswami writes, but shorter. He was a king, not a devata. This answers the question, who are you? I am named Nirga, O Lord endowed with all powers, Prabhu. You are qualified to hear. He uses the word yadi, if, to indicate humility and the possibility of not hearing about him. He was a charitable person, but he indicates this indirectly by the way he speaks. The Lord wanted to show the people that by a small sin, he received this destination. Om Akyana Timarandasya Gyanan Gyanan Shalakaya Shakshu Unmiliktan Gena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhastam Stapitam Yen Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swavadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Vadaya Krishna Vasai Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminitanamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vijani Nirasesa Shunyavadi Paschadeshtrani Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripasinubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Our position in this material world is never secure. Everything we do in this material world can be swept away in one instance, and the future is uncertain, and the end is always near. That's a fact. We don't know if we step out of here and we'll be dead the next moment. I mean, we do know that probably won't happen, and we assume that it won't happen. And King Nirga, actually, he was assuming he was okay. After all, he was just giving in charity and doing what he was supposed to do. He's a charitable king. He knew how to get ahead in this world. He would use his charity and his good works to build himself into a situation where he would enjoy like anything for millions and millions and millions of years. And along one day, actually probably in the course of his whole life, an insignificant event happened. One cow wandered from one brahmana's pasture to another's, and then they got in a fight. He tried to, end the squabble. They didn't take any, they both left angry, and he just probably forgot about the whole thing, because after all, that's one day in his whole life. God, I don't know how long he lived. So, but when he left his body and he was taken by the attendants of Yamaraj to meet Yamaraj, he found out that one day was very faithful. That one day actually was a big mark against his whole program of karma kanda, and Yamaraj let him know. He said, well, you've got unlimited amount of pious credits, so you can enjoy forever, but there's one big problem here, and you can get that out of the way if you want to, or you can enjoy like anything. And then actually Yamaraj expected him to take all the good stuff first and save the bad thing for later, but he took the bad thing first, and that ended up in a well. Of course, by taking the bad thing first, he was ultimately benedicted by getting Krishna's direct touch. And of course, Krishna's direct touch immediately broke the spell of illusion, and he became completely aware of exactly what had happened. And he's going to tell us the story about how trying to be happy in this material world through some sort of pious activities will never make us happy, because this material world is not a happy place. Dukkhalayama Shasvatam, it's temporary, and it's miserable by nature. Birth, death, old age, and disease. They can't cure that. As I was saying sometime recently, that my doctor recommended a certain prescription for me, and he said, this will help prevent death. And I said, well, actually, doctor, nothing prevents death. He said, no, but this will help. It's shown that by taking this medication that you have a 18% less chance of dying. Well, no, not really. No, but 18% less chance of dying within a certain amount of time. Okay, that's fine. But no one gets an 18% less chance of dying. So they can't solve that problem. Nirga couldn't solve the problem of the imperfect nature of his activities, because he's trying to be happy in the material world. Prabhupada, he makes this point in a couple of classes that he speaks about karma kanda. And he talks about how karma kanda is just a waste of time. Many churches, it's a strong statement, because, people get in very great difficulties. Just ask the shop owners in Chapel Hill whose stores have been destroyed by the flood. So maybe someone comes and helps him out. It seems like a good thing. We're helping him out. He's going to get back into business. It's going to be better. His family will be fine. His employees will be fine. Yes, that's good. But it really is on the ultimate transcendental, absolute plane, a waste of time. And it can result in like nirga. It can end up resulting in a bad outcome. So Prabhupada speaks in Bombay in 1974, and this is a part of a class on Bhagavad Gita 428. So charity or sacrificing your possession for the benefit of others, this is also yajna. But they are called karmakanda yajna, fruit of activities. By such performance of yajna, one can elevate his material position, just like feeding the poor. It is also yajna. But the same thing, if it is dovetailed in consciousness, that becomes perfect. People are very much inclined to feed the poor with sumptuous food, but it can be done in a little different way. That the food stuff is offered to Vishnu. Prasadam. That distribution of food stuff is better than ordinary distribution of food stuff. Ordinarily, that is punya, pious activities. But when it is in connection with Krishna, that is called yajna, dravya yajna. To distribute food and cloth, that is called dravya yajna. But yajna can be said when it is done, dovetailing the activities with Krishna consciousness. So he's saying, unless we offer prasad, we're just feeding the bodies of persons who are in distress within this material world, and then after this distress goes away, there'll be another distress. Now he's speaking in Hyderabad on April 20th, 1974. Unfortunately, for want of spiritual knowledge, for want of studying Bhagavad Gita properly, we are simply taking care of this, I mean to say, temporary body. That is being explained. First of all, Krishna says that this body is the kshetra. Kshetra means field of activities. We are acting according to the body we have received, and the owner of the body is working, just like a cultivator has got a certain amount of land, and he is cultivating and producing foodstuff according to his own capacity. This is called karmakanda. We are working with this body and reaping the results and enjoying it. In this way, we are repeating again and again and again transmigration of the soul from one body to another. One body to another, and we're reaping this result. So this is going to be, this is Nirga's best day in his life. Because Nirga actually is breaking that cycle now. But Nirga, like anybody else, is trying to find some security in this world. But all of us in this material world, we're always insecure. There's no one who's not actually, no one is secure. Everyone is in a very vulnerable position. And we want to try to prevent that vulnerability. But if we look at the Bhagavatam, we can see the only invulnerable person really is Krishna or his devotees. Let's look at let's take one story. Durvas Muni. I mean, he's pretty invulnerable. He goes around, he curses everybody all the time. And he seems none the worse for it most of the time. But in one case, when he cursed Maharaj Ambarish, he became very vulnerable. And Maharaj Ambarish, he appeared to be very vulnerable. After all, what was he doing? He was a king. He had armies. He had lots of money. But this was a huge demon that was being conjured up by Durvas Muni. And it's like, you can wave your American passport and all the money you have in the world, but the earthquake's not going to stop. You can't do this to me, I'm an American. No. We don't care what passport you carry. This is a natural disaster. So this was like a natural disaster. It was unnatural in a sense, but it was natural because it's unstoppable except by Krishna. So Krishna, who's invulnerable, makes sure that his devotee is invulnerable. But the devotee is invulnerable by being ultimately vulnerable to Krishna, by being surrendered to Krishna. Well, we know the story. Durvas Muni was forced to actually pay his obeisances and to actually become vulnerable before Ambarish Maharaj. Please, Maharaj, excuse me for my big offense. Now, the interesting thing about vulnerability is that vulnerability, we hear it all the time, is something that allows us to have relationships, because if you're just like a big fortress and walking around in life like that, no one's going to touch you, but you're not going to be able to have any relationships. So some people have an understanding of God as being like this giant fortress, and he doesn't really interact with anybody. But Krishna is very vulnerable. We said he was invulnerable. I mean, who's more invulnerable than the Supreme Personality of Godhead? But when he's playing with his friends, he becomes vulnerable. They play tricks on him. He loses the games. Although he's a great wrestler and can defeat Mushtika, he actually loses to Subal in wrestling. Well, that doesn't seem to make much sense. But he's vulnerable with his friends, and he's most vulnerable with Srimati Radharani, who plays games with him all the time. And actually he becomes flummoxed by Sri Radha. I mean, how does God become bewildered? Only by Madan Mohan Mohini, the actual bewilderer of the bewilderer of Cupid. So this is the case with the Supreme Lord. But everyone else were vulnerable. So it's when we give up our desire to somehow protect our vulnerability that we actually beget the protection of Krishna. And therefore the pure devotees, they get the protection of Krishna. Don't try to do this at home. We're not in the same platform. We can't leave our homeland at the age of 70 in poor health and come to another country and start a worldwide movement. And Prabhupada was very vulnerable, at least on paper it looked that way, but Krishna protected him. In the case of a classic case of where we understand one gives up one's idea of protecting oneself is the case of Draupadi when she's going to be stripped of her sari in the assembly house of the Kurus, and she's doing everything she can to protect herself with how can she protect herself? But when she cries out, "Hey, Govinda," then she cries out in absolute vulnerability, and Krishna then protects her. No one can defeat her. So this is what our life is actually doing to us. When we're young, when we first come to Krishna consciousness, sometimes we think, yes, I've got control. I'm chanting Hare Krishna. I'm giving up all these unwanted habits that are causing me problems, and therefore, one of the most advanced devotees in the Krishna consciousness movement back in the early days, Prabhupada was still around, he made a statement which, if we think about it from our perspective, it was absolutely absurd. He asked Prabhupada, Prabhupada, the Battle of Kurukshetra lasted for 18 days, so if we were completely surrendered, couldn't we, make the whole world Krishna conscious in 18 days? And Prabhupada said, if you took over the world in 18 days, what would you do with it? And later on, after our movement, after Prabhupada left, we saw there were a lot of difficulties. These same devotees who were thinking, oh yes, now we're under the protection of Prabhupada, we're invulnerable, we can do anything we want, and we'll be successful. We couldn't even become Krishna conscious ourselves, let alone make the whole world Krishna conscious in 18 days. So we're a work in progress. But how do we actually come to a point we can surrender? Well, sometimes it takes extraordinary circumstances. Let's look at one circumstance that parallels this circumstance because it involves a king. From the Nectar of Devotion, chapter 29, under the heading of humility. In order to become a lover of God and experience prem, love, we have to have dainya, which is humility. And how we get that humility, well, that may not happen in a certain sort of way. We may think, I'm going to get my humility. Well, I doubt that will happen. What will probably happen is we'll be put in situations that are beyond our control and we become humble. So, Prabhupada writes in this section, a sense of weakness caused by distress, fear, or offensiveness is called humility. In such a humble condition, one becomes talkative, small in heart, dirty in mind, full of anxiety, and inactive. That's an interesting description. Talkative, small in heart, dirty in mind. What does that mean? It means that we understand we have dirty thoughts, bad thoughts, improper thoughts, things that we shouldn't be thinking or feeling, and we're full of anxiety and inactive. So the example here is given of King Muchukunda. Now look, Muchukunda was a fearsome person, and he was serving Krishna, well, not really serving Krishna, he was serving the demigods, and he was fighting for the demigods for a very long time, because he's fighting in the heavenly planets, and therefore, he's living for a very long time fighting. And when he has the opportunity to get a benediction, all he wants to do is sleep, because he's really tired. So he gets to sleep like, one yuga cycle, I don't know, a very long time. It's in there. I mean, it's like he's sleeping through, Satya, Treta, Dwarpa, and Kali a couple times. I mean, we're talking deep sleep here. So he gets this benediction, and he gets a benediction ultimately that he can burn up somebody who wakes him up untimely. And, of course, he kills Kalayavana by Krishna's arrangement. But then Krishna shows up before him, and he's lying there kind of like half awake, and he makes this statement, "My dear Lord, because of my bad deeds in the past, I am everlastingly aggrieved. I am always suffering from my desires, but still my senses are never satisfied with material enjoyments." He's really opening his heart up here. "Somehow or other, by your grace, Krishna, I am now in a peaceful condition because I have taken shelter of your lotus feet, which are always free from all lamentation, fear, and death. O Supreme Protector, O Supreme Soul, O Supreme Controller, kindly give me your protection. I am so much embarrassed." So we are embarrassed in this material world. We're suffering from distress. Our senses are never satisfied with material enjoyments. But it is by the grace of Krishna that we are actually able to, what's stated here, become free from all lamentation, fear, and death. Now some people, some yogis, they think they're going to do it on their own, and they can do something, but in this day and age, no one can be successful with that sort of yoga. And even in previous times, if we read the Bhagavatam, That sort of yoga is very, very, very difficult. And oftentimes, the persons who actually do this sort of penance, they're like Hiranyakashipu or Ravana. And all they want to do is just become big, powerful people in the material world. We don't want that. Or actually, we do want that. But and that's why we're here. But when we were put into a situation where all of a sudden we are confronted with the fact that we are, as Muchakunda said, everlastingly aggrieved, suffering from my desires, and never satisfied with material enjoyments, that somehow by the grace of Krishna, we are given an opportunity to become Krishna conscious, at least to some degree. This statement of Muchakunda is an instance of humility resulting from a severely miserable condition of material existence. Whether we know it or not, we're in misery in this material world. Most people, when they came to Krishna consciousness, at least had some degree of misery. Something wasn't right. It was at least a stone in your shoe that you couldn't get out, and it's just vexing and causing problems. But in many of our cases, it was a huge weight on our shoulders as we realized, I can't be happy here, and all the prescriptions to be happy here will never make me happy. And this story of Nirga is supposed to teach us that. Here's a king who could do everything perfectly, except he made one mistake. How many mistakes are we making? Especially in this material world now in Kali Yuga, no one even knows how to do the process of becoming materially pious. Even with the best intentions, it doesn't happen. So, by the grace of Krishna, by the grace of Prabhupada, we've actually come to understand something that's stated very much in very simple terms in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, text, verse number 9. Yagnartat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhana tarartam karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain free from bondage. And what does Prabhupada say? He says that in this material world, we have to practice the process of Krishna consciousness because by performing these activities in Krishna consciousness, we'll be performing work in a liberated stage, even if we don't actually understand it completely. But in this age, Prabhupada goes on to say in the purport that all sacrificial performances, although they're meant for the satisfaction of Vishnu, that we can't really do any sacrifices in this age because it's such an impure time. The varnashram doesn't even exist. And the varnashram that does exist, so-called, is so perverted that no one would even want to touch it. So therefore, the only thing left for us is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. One may say that sounds very simple, and it is in one sense very simple. And someone will say, well, you're in this material world, you're just going to throw your hands up and say, I surrender to you? Yes, that's what we have to say. In the flash flood flowing down the stream, one may want to question how one's being plucked out of the water by somebody, but no, you just throw your hands up and say, help! And then that surrender to that person allows us to get out of our predicament. In fact, sometimes it's said that when the lifeguard is trying to save somebody and they're fighting, he has to bash them in the head, maybe knock them out. Because if you're still fighting, I can't help you. So if we're still fighting, Krishna really can't help us. So stop fighting. How do I stop fighting? Well, the more I fight, the more he's going to show me how to stop fighting. So with that knowledge, let us become very sincere and work with Krishna with our own difficulties and become faithful servants at whatever level we can become. By Prabhupada's mercy, we're here today, and we pray that we can stay here in the association of the devotees. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jai.
Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami Maravindanalayatapsam Varhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandar Bhagom Vikamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakalem Priya Priti Manti Vasyanti Panti Kayanti Jiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami 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 Govindam
Jeev Jago, Gora Chandra Mole, Kota Nidra Jaya Maya, Pichachira Kole, Kota Nidra Jaya Maya, Pichachira Kole. eshe. Samsara bitore ajibo bolia eshe. Samsara bitore ajibo bolia eshe. Samsara bitore ajibo bolia eshe. Samsara bitore bolia rohile to me avidyarabare bolia rohile to me avidyarabare tomare loite ami hoinu avatara tomare loite ami hoinu avatara tomare loite ami hoinu avatara loite ami hoinu avatara ami bina bandhu ara teache tamara ami bina bandhu ara teache tamara Veneche Ashaudi Maya Nasiba Lagi Veneche Ashaudi Maya Nasiba Lagi Hari Nama Maha Mantra loud to me Magi 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 Bhakti Vinoda Prabhu Charane Pariya Bhakti Vinoda Prabhu Charane Pariya Say Hari Nama Mantra Loyal Magiya Say Hari Nama Mantra Laila Magiya Say Hari Nama Mantra Laila Magiya Say Hari Nama Mantra Laila Magiya Jeev Jago Jeev Jago Gora Chandra Bole Jeev Jago Jeev Jago Gora Chandra Bole Gauta Nidra Jaya Maya Diksha Chira Kole Gauta Nidra Maya Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Bo, Nitai Gaur, Hare Bo, Nitai Gaur, Hare Bo, Hare Bo, Hare Bo, Nitai Gaur, Hare Bo, Hare Bo, Hare Bo, Nitai Gaur, Hare Bo, Nitai Gaur, Hare Bo, Hare Bo, Hare Bo, Nitai Gaur, Jaya Radha Golokananda, Radha Golokananda, Radhe Jaya Radha Golokananda, Golokananda, Jaya Radha Golokananda, Radha Golokananda, Radhe Jaya Radha Golokananda, Radha Golokananda, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Golokananda ki jai, Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai, Sankirtan Yagna ki jai. Lord Gaurachandra is calling. Wake up, sleeping soul. Wake up, sleeping soul. How long will you sleep in the lap of the witch called Maya? You have forgotten the way of devotional service and have lost the threat of birth and death. I have descended just to save you. I am your only true friend. Other than me, what friend do you have? I have brought the medicine that will wipe out the disease of illusion from which you suffer. Take this great chant for deliverance, Mahamantra, the names of Hari. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, falling at the Lord's lotus feet, take shelter of the Harinam mantra, the Lord's holy names. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Chaitadarpanam Arjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam Shreya Kairavya Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Pratipanam Purnamrita Swanam Makari Bharuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrapitani Amrita Smaranena Kala Etadrishita Vakripa Bhagavan Mamapi Dodaiva Midvishami Hajjanina Nuraga Trinadapi Suniche Yasveshuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Vajagadisha Kamae Mama Janmani Janmani Ishvare Bhavatad Bhakti Ahoitaki Tvai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavam Buddha Kripayata Vabhata Pankaja Stita Duli Sadrashim Vachintaya Nayanam Gadashru Daraya Vadaram Gad Gadurudaya Gira Pulakarnishitam Vapukada Tavanama Grahane Vavishyati Yuga Yatam Namishena Chakshusha Pavashayatam Shunayatam Jagat Sarvam Govindam Virahiname Ashlishyavapadamritam Manastumam Adarshanam Mama Takarotuva Yatatata Vidadatu Lampato Matranastastu Saivanapara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. Oh, my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you've invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Oh, my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Oh, Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. Oh, my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? Oh, Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri Shashaska Ki Jai. And thank you to Sundari Radha for dressing the deity so nicely. And downstairs, I'm sure the cooks have made such a nice offering for your lordships too. Hare Krishna.